Hey, what's up guys, it's Wimpy. Here's an Arcane build. It's level 80. Here are the stats. Kind of my typical stat spread. I got 40 in the damage stat, close to 50 vigor, and the rest is spread around. Here are my spells. Luckily, a lot of these spells don't require that much faith, except for Grails, so I just have to burn a physic slot. Here are my talismans. Mostly stat boosting. I have one utility talisman, which is the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, but that one really doesn't come off this build. It is a bleed build, so it's worth keeping it on. Those are my weapons. For this build, I'm mostly going occult infused, innate bleed weapons, and weapons that I think are fun with a bleed infusion. The difference being, if it's an occult infused and it already does bleed, you do additional bleed buildup and you do damage versus just giving it a flat amount of bleed buildup. But in some cases, it's not the worst. You'll see here, and I'll use a Milady here in another invasion, and it does pretty good bleed buildup through multi-hits. I swapped to Rivers of Blood here so I can mirror match this guy. This is probably my first build in about 20 builds that can actually use Rivers of Blood. When the game came out, I was like, I'm not going to use that. I'm not a big Katana fan, and I don't really, bleed builds were kind of overdone in my opinion. So I was like, I'll be different. I'm not like the other invaders, but it's time, it's a time I make an Arcane build. Here we go, running R2 into the weapon art, and because I'm hitting with the blade, it does the full bleed buildup. It got nerfed. It used to do the bleed buildup from the projectiles, and that was insane. That I think did need to be nerfed. Some of it was maybe an overcorrection. I think in a 1v1, Rivers of Blood is actually not that great, but definitely in a gank, it was pretty impressive. I go for a setup parry there because this guy's pretty R1 greedy, but he maybe a little bit too slow, or is our connection? Either way. Here's some good bleed build-up. Goodness. Go for a backstab there, but he's just a little bit too slow. He's kind of using a bleed setup. He's using Blood Flame Blade on Bloodhound's Fang, which is good. Like I don't, that is a good thing. I think Bloodhound's Fang has innate bleed, but it's more of a quality weapon. Right, go for the setup parry there. You can generally do that with most medium-sized weapons, by the way, and it's pretty consistent. This guy is ballsy. He goes for a heal right in front of me, and I get the backstab. So, GG's. You gotta respect that. These guys out there being sly, they were, they're hiding. This is like my third invasion where people have done this. I wonder if like somebody put out like a YouTube video or showing you can do this. I'm not sure. Here's Bleed Milady. It's pretty good. It's not the best, it's not the worst. It's solid. I get greedy here and go for a backstab, which was a mistake. When will I ever learn my lesson? Surprise! I won't. Always go for backstabs. Backstabs are amazing. And the DS2 friends, where it's like it does a lot of damage and it's easy. It's true. My greed for backstabs has probably gotten me killed more than anything else in this game. He decided, the host decided he was just gonna swing into the enemies, so it let me hit him for free. And the summon decided he wanted to charge up a spell, so that was a GG. This is a 2v2 actually. This was pretty fun. I'm using the one Arcane straight sword in the game. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's okay. The Arcane scaling is okay. I think it's like a D or something. It's not the best, it's not the worst. Compared to my other level 80 builds, it underperforms a little bit, but it's fine. As you see, my Co is using the Blood Claws. I think those are pretty good occult infused as well. I haven't tried it. I'm typically not a fan of weapons that move you around a whole bunch, because it can kind of get unpredictable. I swap here to the Scavenger's Curved Sword. As you can see, this thing is pretty good occult infused. Got a lot of do a lot of damage, builds up a lot of bleed, is fast, and I actually prefer just like single curved swords. I know that running L1 with dual bleed curve swords is good. I realize that it's good, but that's fine. I don't need to do it. I'm trying really hard not to hit my Ko here. Ooh, nice backstab. He's not giving me. He doesn't care. He's like, I'm gonna hit this button, and you gotta kind of respect that, you know. Who knows? Maybe he was fighting these guys for hours, and that was his final chance to, you know, kill the horse. I don't know. Yep, we roll caught him. GG's. Courtesy. That's the word I was thinking of. Here's Bloody Helis. This weapon I absolutely love, but I understand. I am aware that it is broken in some ways, and you'll see why in a bit. Anyway, if you've noticed, these are the exact same crew that I invaded in the first invasion in this video. I just thought it was funny. They had enough of my shit. He has some sort of arcane build because he's using like the serpent bone fist thing, or the serpent fist. I don't know what they're called. The poison fist weapons. Venomous Fang. Venomous Fang. As you see there, Dynas Finesse, the weapon art, lets you just a little spin, and that spin has iframes. And the fun thing, and maybe the broken thing about that spin, is that you don't have to do the follow-up swipe. You can just go back into the spin. So effectively, it's kind of like, you know, Bloodhound Step or a Light Roll, or I don't know if it has as many iframes, but it definitely feels like it's pretty broken, especially when you just spam the weapon art over and over again. These guys are being a little passive, which is okay. They decide to both start spamming their Ashes of War pretty far away from me, but that's okay. There we go. The weapon art, get some distance, go for the poke. If he attacks out a hit stun, you can probably kill him with the swipe follow-up. But if not, you also have the running R2. It's a heavy thrusting sword, so that is an amazing running R2. Anyway, the host has decided that he has had enough. And then DCs. Alright, Eleonora's Pole Blade. The whole reason I have 21 decks on this build. Is it good? Yes. It can do a lot of damage, but it's not my favorite, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, it's more of a dex weapon, I think, and I have just the amount of decks to use it. Two, it does seem, to me anyways, to be a really PvE coded weapon. Like, I think where this thing shines is if you have two of them, and you just jump attacking a boss that doesn't have aggro on you, or hell, even just one, and just spamming the weapon art into a boss when they're looking at a different direction. That's, I think, where this weapon shines. In an invasion scenario, it's okay. It's not the best. In my opinion, it's not the best. And the reason it's not the best is because it moves you around so much. I'm just not a fan of that. Maybe in duels it's okay, but in invasion it's kind of whatever. If I want a lot of single target damage, you can just invest into decks and use a bleed infused peeler, and I feel like that would be just as good. So I got lucky there. They got absolutely whammied by the PvE, so I was able to hunt down this host. Here's a Rivers of Blood invasion. I really don't remember what level this guy was, but he had an interesting build. The summon. He I think it's in Faith. So he's not in Faith stuff. I stupidly go in for an attack because I'm like, surely he'll have to flask after using Armor. But no, he just uses it again, and I get rotted. Puts me in a predicament. I kind of have to run away at this point to flask because I'm on a ticking clock now. I go over here to hopefully get some PvE, but they haven't even gotten to the door yet. So at this point, I'm forced to fight. Here we go. Here we can see the power of a bleed build. Like that. If you hit with the blade with Rivers of Blood, it does a lot of damage and a lot of bleed build up. So I feel like that's a pretty good trade-off. And as you can see from what I just did there, you don't have to do the hard overhead swing after you finish. You can just cancel back into the first part of the Ash, which is arguably the better part. Here's here's the what is this, the star mace or whatever. It's a hammer, all right. Hammers have traditionally not been that good, but they've been getting a lot of buffs, and they're at the point now where they're kind of okay. I wouldn't call them, you know, a meta weapon by any means, but they get a little bit more hype armor, a little faster, and in some situations that can be good. Where they're not great is their distance. Look at that. He spaced me out by just walking away while healing. So they don't have that much reach, but they have some good qualities about them. Here we go, some backstab shenanigans. I think later in the invasion you'll see me use the hammer a little bit more smartly. For the Arcane, Dragon Communion Seal, the Dragon Communion spell does respectable damage. And it procs my Millicent's Talisman, so it is a lot of damage and a lot of hype armor. Dragon's Claw is just a really good get off me tool. Here we go, as a setup parry. This guy seems to be pretty greedy about his R1s, so I figured he would be a good candidate for parrydom. I swapped to the Great Katana because I want to kill this summon so I can test some things out with the host. And Sword Dance on a Great Katana is so good. It is so good. So much range, hyper armor, reach. Alright, here we go. In a second here, I think I go for a backstab. Yeah, I can't help it. I do a neat little spell combo. Here we go, right into Blood Flame Talons. Now, I think with my current cast speed, it's not like a true combo, but I think if you had faster cast speed, I think it would be. Let's see now. I don't quite have enough hype armor to tank anything past, like, I would say the first swing maybe, or I should say his first swing. So I can hit twice, but his hyper armor takes priority after that, so I gotta be careful. There's one, he attacks, I go in, I can hit once, I have to roll out. But I'm doing bleed build up with each hit, so still pretty respectable. Here's a good food weapon. These claws were all I saw for a patch because they had a true combo where if you landed the R2 or the running R2, it would go into, I think the R1 maybe? Or maybe it was another R2. Anyway, it was insane. With Bleed Grease on, Keen, it was good. With Occult Infusion, it was good. You know, Lightning was good. Like, it was just a lot of damage. It's like, hey, here's a bunch of damage up front. Boom. Deal with it. I think this latest patch might have buffed the claws back to get their combo again. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to land it. But that's okay. They're still just a good weapon. Nice running R1 there. This invasion, oh my god. I think I cut like 40 minutes off of this invasion. It's off to a bad start. One, I'm bat rolling because I didn't unequip my bone bow for another invasion. And two, they are specced out to the gills. So one of them is running the bone bow with sleep bolts. One of them is honest. The one with the Burger King helmet is pretty honest. As you can see here, an unupgraded, or I shouldn't say unupgraded, but I don't have the requirements to use this cannon, and I'm still doing a big chunk of his health by hitting him. So I go here for a Hail Mary. If you notice the cannon is the DLC one. It has some limited like lock-on, which is pretty cool. Like the ballista bolts will curve towards your targets. You know, you can still roll it pretty easily, but for anyone that's not expecting it, it can be a nice little tool. So here we go. Here's a summon out with his Bobo with his sleep bolts. I think this one was from Japan, so it was a little bit latent as well, which is kind of a bad combo. But I was able to aggro this this gargoyle here. This gargoyle was mean, dude. At this point, I was getting kind of curious where this guy was. I think he's probably spec'd out for Faith or something, so I can use that. But he did not put any points into Vigor. He's also half naked, so he doesn't really get a lot of bleed resist. Actually, does armor affect? Yeah, armor affects your robustness. It has to, right? I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've recorded this dialogue like 3 or 4 times, and I keep messing up, or I get a phone call or something. Anyway, the host decides that he actually wants to fight now, so. And then he gets killed by the gargoyle, and I get killed by the gargoyle as well because I get knocked off. But hey, we take those. All right, final invasion. This guy's build was pretty interesting. It's a full regen build. You can see he's wearing the Icon shield and Royal Remains armor. I'm wearing a piece of the Royal Remains armor, but mostly for fashion, not really for the really low heal. You heal at, I think, a low health. The summon is using good old Vikes. Reapers are fun. They're kind of an iconic bleed weapon, I would say. This does pretty good damage, pretty good bleed build-up. I'm just not the best with Reapers. I don't know what it is. It's just their hitbox is like really wonky. They're a little slow, and you can avoid so many attacks from Reapers by just strafing. So they're not my favorite. He's got Prayerful Strike. If Prayerful Strike lands, it heals him. So honestly, that's a pretty fun, smart little setup. But it will get annoying here in a second, and we'll see why. Thankfully, I was able to knock him out of that with the bleed. When you bleed proc somebody, it actually will stagger them out of some animations where they would normally get a lot of hype armor. I don't know what level this summon is, and he dies later, and I don't have it recorded, so I'm not sure what happens. He dies to PV, but he has a lot of bleed resist, or seemingly has a lot of bleed resist. I caught him in a Stormcaller, and then also a couple of hits afterwards, and still not bled out, which is insane. I think I finally bleed him out with this next attack here, yeah. But by this point, my spider sense is tingling. I'm like, uh-oh, I haven't seen the host in a while. So I go and I retreat to the upper section. And the summon dies somehow. I'm not really sure what killed him. Here's Bleed Milady. Milady in a 1v1 is just so good. It's got so much potential, roll catch potential, damage potential, and backswing potential. It's good. In multiple people, it's okay to bad, I would say. But in a 1v1, it can be pretty impressive, especially after they added additional poise damage. I try to strafe some of his pokes, but we're a little bit latent, so it means that I'm more than likely going to get hit or trade off of one of those attacks. But I'll show you a neat trick here in a second about latent connections. So anyway, I swap to a Great Sword because I'm like, maybe I can hyper arm through this. And as he sees me do that, he swaps to a two-handed thrusting sword. If you don't know, two-handed thrusting sword does an insane poise damage. And on latent connections, I'm not saying he's doing it on purpose, but on latent connections, they can really be pretty oppressive. Because you can get a lot of phantom hits. So I also swap to one. It's not my favorite playstyle. In my opinion, it's kind of boring, but it's whatever. This is poison infused, just to add some more pressure. I think you'll see here in a second, I go for an attack, but the attack doesn't land, and the reason the attack doesn't land is because on his screen, I'm further back. So it messes with the hit confirmation. I think you see it here. Yep. And that's just because we're late. But it gives him an advantage because he can attack me, and on my screen, I'll see, like, I'm further back, but I'll end up getting hit. Anyway. Once I landed the weapon art, I had enough pressure that I can just stay in his face. And either he'll die from the poison, or he'll die from our wound. So, those were the invasions. Hope you enjoyed.